You're tuned in to Night Vision Radio, exposing the truth one secret at a time. Prepare yourself as we explore the shadow worlds of suppressed history, secret knowledge, forbidden religion, and shine a light on the conspiracies to keep it all from us. Welcome to Night Vision Radio. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm your host, René Barnett. This is Night Vision Radio. I'm really excited about tonight's show because not only is it going to be really interesting information, it's going to be a lot of fun. I've decided to sort of start a new feature on Night Vision, and every now and then we will be looking at specific locations and examining them for all their weird activity, whether it be paranormal, UFO, haunts, hidden history, whatever the case may be, forbidden archaeology. We're going to take a look at special places because I think you guys have heard me say several times, you know, of course you always hear me gassing on about going to France, and of course I love to go over there and poke around in Europe, and because there's so much history there. But I also say that, you know, you really don't have to be a world traveler, not that I am, but you don't have to go across the ocean to find really strange and interesting things. As a matter of fact, I think you can probably find them right in your own backyard. So I'm going to start a feature called In Our Own Backyard, and tonight we're going to start with my home state and some really good friends of mine who are doing some amazing research. They're UFO investigators par excellence. They're veterans. They're directors of the Oklahoma UFO Paranormal team, and they both have years of experience in investigating UFOs. They were state directors of MUFON for a number of years. They've continued on their own research, and they've really dovetailed and expanded it into different areas that include forbidden history, hauntings, any kind of strangeness that you want to find in the state of Oklahoma. And I'm so excited because they've just returned from an investigation into the infamous Dog Man of Oklahoma, which I can't wait to hear about. So tonight, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marilyn and Dick Carlson. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having us.
You know, I should also mention we got, you know, our wonderful producer on the line with us at all times, making sure everything runs properly. And we've asked MJ to jump in at any moment, you know, because he's definitely got his own paranormal background, and he may have some information to include, or he may have some additional questions for our guest tonight. But, you know, Marilyn, I was trying to think about you know, earlier when we first came into contact, and of course, it brought to mind our good friend, the late, great Elaine Douglas, who was a MUFON Utah State Director for a number, I think something like 25 years or something, some crazy amount of time.
She was around a long time.
Oh, man, and she was also headed up Operation Right to Know, and she was a fireball. We lost her a couple years back, but I remembered her talking to me about Marilyn Carlson. Marilyn Carlson was a good friend of hers. And so when I heard from Elaine that her passing was imminent, and I mean within a few days she was gone, I got hold of Marilyn, and we sort of became fast friends, and especially since she's in my home state of Oklahoma, we have a lot to talk about because we know a lot of the same sites. But I tell you, Marilyn and Dick have really gotten in there, and you guys are onto a lot of things that I didn't even know about. So I want to get into that whole Dogman investigation. What is the Dogman?
Well, Dogman is a creature that ranges in height from 7 foot to, and it's been reported as being as tall as 12 foot. It looks like a dog, has dog face, but it walks on its hind legs. Sometimes the legs are reported as appearing kind of more like human legs, the shape of them more like human legs. And sometimes the legs are more like the hind leg of a dog. They're hairy, but always the face looks like it has the snout of a dog. And
how long have these reports been coming out? I know I grew up in southeastern Oklahoma, and I did a documentary on Bigfoot down there in that same region where you guys are talking about. And I was so amazed at the many stories that went back at least 100 years of Bigfoot reports in the area. But growing up there, I didn't hear about that. So is this another case of this is sort of a legendary creature that, you know, in certain communities they know about? But, you know, Oklahoma can be very kind of cliquish and clannish, and the little communities are kind of tight. And even from one county to another. I remember when we were investigating, and you know, the Bigfoot thing, and I would go, you know, I was in like say McCurtain County, and I would say, well, so and so over here told me this or that, and he goes, he's from Payne County. You can't believe anybody from Payne County. So is this one of those kind of deals that I just never heard about, or is this something that's come up fairly recently?
It's actually a fairly recent thing that people are starting to talk about. There is a Pennsylvania investigator, Butch Witowski, that really kind of brought it to the forefront about Dogman. And so more reports came in to Oklahoma, and we just recently went on a case in Tallahena, and it's down in southeast Oklahoma. It's south of I-40 and kind of
near Heavener. A lot of people have heard of the Heavener runestone.
Yes, and it's south of Heavener, actually. Maybe, I don't know, 50, 75 miles from Heavener. And yeah, we went down, when we went over there, we went through McAllister and that way.
Right.
But it's a beautiful drive into Tallahena. I will say that. And it just the landscape really is conducive to both Bigfoot and the Dogman. And these people reported seeing a Dogman. They were sitting on their back porch, and she was reading the paper, and she heard this funny kind of howl kind of thing, and she looked up and didn't think anything about it. She thought maybe it was a dog way out in the woods. And then she saw this Dogman standing near the lake, because the woods went down to the lake, and actually is locally called Lake Tallahena. And there's another smaller lake that is nearby Tallahena, and we couldn't get to actually the smaller lake. The road there had been heavy rains previously, and the road was washed out, and there were huge boulder-like rocks in the road. So we couldn't get to the location we really wanted to go to, but we did investigate around Tallahena Lake, and it was difficult even there because the lake water was very high, and there was no shoreline whatsoever except just kind of the straight drop down into the water. And
it's a man-made lake. And
there's a dam there.
So it's just kind of like cliffs.
Yeah. And so we looked around for footprints, scouted all around, could not find any footprints there. And the people in that region are very closed-mouthed, tight-lipped.
Yep.
We had to be very careful about going on anybody's property because a lot of the land there we noticed was posted. So we didn't dare go on that property. And so it because of the posted land and the high water, it was a little difficult to get in to look more for footprints. But we do have a case that we investigated maybe 6 months ago, and it was over 10 miles east of Ada. And Ada's in the central part of the state.
Yep.
And he reported seeing what appeared to be a dog-like creature out by his barn. And he's watching it, and it turns and it looks at him. He sees that the creature sees that he's looking at it, and it turns and starts menacingly walking towards him. And that's when he could see then that it had a face of a dog, but it was walking on two hind legs. And
what a weird feeling would that be?
It scared the crap out of him.
I mean, kind of like almost like you could almost accept kind of a Bigfoot creature, but that is really bizarre. An upright walking dog man.
Right. And we went out. At first he thought it was just like 3 or 4 foot tall. But when he had his son go out, who's nearly 6 foot, and stand out where he saw the creature standing by his barn, he realized that the creature was probably 7 foot or more.
Oh my gosh.
So
I thought it when it initially came out of the barn, it was on all fours.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was walking on all fours, but then it stood up and walked on its hind legs towards him. So anyway,
I bet that would call for some a quick change of underwear. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, probably did. We went out there right away, and he found a footprint. He had dumped the ashes from the fireplace, and it was out a little ways into the field, and he found a footprint in where the mud and the ashes were. And that footprint that I sent you a photograph of,
yes,
we're holding the casting, that's the footprint.
Oh, pretty big.
Well, it really was. It was probably the size of an actual gray wolf print, as near as we could tell by researching a little bit for the size of the print. And but the print went down into the mud and ashes quite a ways, so it weighed a lot. Whatever stepped on that one spot, and it's just the one footprint. We searched around for other footprints, but it was just a little bit too rocky to find any other prints. But we casted it, and the largest dog that we had it to compare to is still larger than a Great Pyrenees.
Oh,
so
wow.
We compared the print to that dog, and even
it's still larger.
Cast the dog's footprint into the mud, and then did the comparison, and the footprint we cast was larger than that.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
it's funny because that's the same area. Ada, Tallahena, Broken Bow, all around that area, Heavener, and across over into Mena, Arkansas. It's right there along the Arkansas. Well, that area is really in that point where Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, all kind of come together, and maybe Louisiana even, up into there. And so that area, we found so many reports of, cryptids, but mostly what, sounded to us like Bigfoot creatures. I mean, they had different names for them. Some people.
I have questions about, is Dogman really a Bigfoot that just has a snout?
I wonder, or are some of these Bigfoot sightings really Dogman sightings?
Yes.
Maybe people are maybe there are two different creatures down there, and people, kind of see one furry creature and, assume it's a Bigfoot or something like that. But it was really amazing. And down by Ada, we met with way, way, way out in this little house in the woods, met with this Seminole medicine man, and he talked to us about the Bigfoot creatures, and he said, we just call them another tribe. We don't bother them, and they don't bother us, but they walk up and down the rivers and the streams. Right. They walk along the waterways. And these were things that were just, again, right in my own backyard growing up in southeastern Oklahoma that I just did not know about. And it's amazing. It's got to be that way everywhere. There's got to be hidden things that if you look, you'll find. And yes. I know you guys have done a lot of work in not only in cryptids, but in hauntings and long, long history of UFO investigations.
Right. Yes. We in fact, we just got a request to do an interview. We investigated something in Springfield, Missouri. It's really not here, but we've been asked.
Very close,
yeah. By KTTL TV in Springfield. If we would interview about a case where this young 9-year-old girl was killed, she was murdered, and we went over to investigate it, and we made contact with her, and so we have that up on the website, but we're noticing, we just went tonight to take a look at it, and for some reason our video of our contact with the girl, we use a flashlight to make contact. Some people use the spirit box. I don't find it very trustworthy at all, but yet people tell you, well, don't trust the flashlight. But the flashlight, we use a mag light, and the small mag light that you can buy.
Right.
And we set it somewhere where it's not being disturbed by vibrations or us. Nobody touches it. We ask questions, and we just instruct the spirit to touch the flashlight to get it to turn on to answer questions that are yes or no questions. And we did that also when we investigated, what was his name?
Leroy Hart.
Leroy.
Gene Leroy Hart. Yeah.
Yes, and he's buried up in Baloo, which is it's out of it's out of Locust Grove.
Locust Grove, yeah. For those who may not know, we've actually on this show, and you've done other shows on it as well. Gene Leroy Hart was the main suspect in a murder case in Oklahoma back in what was it, 1977?
1977, yeah.
Yeah. June of 1977, and where 3 little Girl Scouts were murdered. I mean, the case actually garnered worldwide press and attention, and Gene Hart was the main suspect. Yep. However, he was acquitted. Huge controversy in the state of Oklahoma. Everyone has an opinion one way or the other, but there was a lot of sort of paranormal things that went on during that investigation and had to do with medicine men and rituals being performed at the courthouse and all kinds of really, really interesting things. Sure. But Gene Hart died in a very mysterious way after he was acquitted. And he is buried in a graveyard in Maryland, has been out there. outside Locust Grove. So that's who we're talking about here. And there's a lot of paranormal stuff around that story, I tell you.
Yeah, Mike knows about that one. We did not make contact with Jean Leroy Hart, but his mother is buried right next to him, and we made contact with her.
Ella Mae Buckskin.
Ella Mae Buckskin, that's right. And we made contact with her, and so it's still an open investigation. The files have not been closed on that case because they have not found the individual who, because he was acquitted of the murders. Let me say this: Jean Leroy Hart was not a nice man.
No.
He when he died in prison, and he was there because he was convicted of a kidnapping
and
raping a couple women, and they were young women,
2 young pregnant women,
right? And so he was convicted of that crime. So it wasn't beyond him to kidnap even a young child or go in and commit the murders of those young girls. But because he was acquitted, that there was apparently not enough evidence. And there is the guy that wrote Tent Number 8, presented down here in Lexington. There's a gentleman that has a bookstore down here, and he has frequent people come in and guests come in and talk about their books. He prefers authors, but we're not authors, and we're gonna go down on the 4th of August and do a presentation on UFOs, because he's doing a weekend thing called Saucers Over Oklahoma.
Ooh.
So, yeah. And so we're going to go down and present about some of our Oklahoma investigations, UFO investigations. So, and there's been quite a few of those. We were actually at the Runestone, and we were sky watching, and we caught something. We do not know what it was. We could see it with the naked eye. It was a brilliant, bright light. It was down in the valley below the Runestone. There's a huge parking lot that's up kind of on the point, and off to the left is a campground. It used to be owned by the state, but the state closed it, and somebody else took over trying to support the campground. But there is a campground there, and we were up there, and we saw this light come just drifting across the valley. Was not moving real fast. We could see it with the naked eye, and we caught it on our night vision cameras. So there's activity there. There's UFO activity there in that area as well. So, and then we have another case that was reported to us near Ada, and this woman was driving down the road, and she saw Dogman climb over the fence and run across the road and into the woods on the other side. And it turned and looked at her as it was running across the road, and that's when she could see that it had a dog-like face. So that's another case.
Was it day or night? Do you know?
It was a daytime sighting.
Daytime. Oh my goodness, that's really wild. Now, did you happen to hear the story about actor Rob Lowe recently?
Yes, he's doing some programming. Yes, he's doing some programs on
on
weird
the
things, strange things, paranormal.
Yeah, it said I saw it this morning on page6.com, and it says that Rob Lowe says he thought he was going to be killed during an encounter with a Bigfoot creature while filming his new A&E docuseries.
Yeah, and I don't know where he was. Was he in Oklahoma at the time?
I do not know. It says Lowe tells Entertainment Weekly the encounter took place in the Ozark Mountains, which stretch through Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. He said that he and his sons were camping there to investigate a Bigfoot-like creature that the locals called a wood ape during a shoot for his new series called The Low Files. And he said something began to approach their camp, and he said he was lying on the ground thinking he was going to be killed. And he also said, I'm fully aware that this story makes me sound like a crazy Hollywood kook, but it happened. Yes. It really happened. So that's really interesting. It'll be fun to see that when it comes out.
We have a dogman case in Boone County, Arkansas, that's been reported to us as well. We have not gone over to investigate that, but it's in a federal area that that's state lands, and so we'll go and check that out. But it's going to probably be a 3 or 4 day camp out in order to see if we get anything. A lot of times when you go on investigations like that, things just don't happen right away. You have to be there for a little while to see if you're going to get any kind of action or reaction for things that are happening in that area. The only case that we went on where we got something almost immediately upon arrival is in Pennsylvania, when Ken Storch ran into his Bigfoot down on Narrows Creek, and that's in Clearfield County. And there's also dogman being reported in Clearfield County now as well. So we find that interesting that they're now seeing dogman as well. So Clearfield County has some unusual things going on.
Now, you mentioned that case down in Boone County, Arkansas. Where is Boone County? Is that what's that close to?
Well, it's up in north. I think it's in northeast Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
So it'd be where the mountains are starting.
Right.
But there's parts of Arkansas, southern Arkansas, is like being down in southeast Oklahoma.
Yes.
And Texas, up along the Texas border. It's sort of like mountains, but rolling kind of hill mountains, low mountains, and a lot of trees, brushy in the area. So it's sometimes hard to go in and investigate anything where it's overgrown with brush, and so we kind of like to try and investigate things in the fall and the spring before the leaves are after once the leaves are gone, or in the spring before the leaves really set on, because then you can see farther back into the woods.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Plus it's cooler and less problems with ticks. And
unfortunately, when we were filming for Bigfootville documentary down in that region, it was in December. And it was cold as it could be. In fact, we were staying in a cabin on top of one of those mountains right along Talamina Drive, which is one of the most beautiful scenic drives in the country. It's very well known. And but we were off in the boonies in a cabin, and it was just crazy. So we were out there crunching around in the ice. There was an ice storm. And we stayed out all night one night down in Foggy Bottom on Grand Lake looking for Bigfoot, where there had been some sightings. A couple of police officers had sightings down there, and we included them in our documentary. But it was very, very cold. But you're right, we could see further because there wasn't the foliage that you would have, even though it's absolutely gorgeous. And fall is the time you kind of want to go there if you're just going for the scenery, because it's just absolutely amazing. And there are all these lookouts there, and even those ranger towers that you can climb and really, really get a panoramic view. And it's really breathtaking.
It is breathtaking. There's no doubt about it. We also investigated a Bigfoot case in Poto.
Poto. Oh,
yeah. It really wasn't far from where the runestones are.
Yeah,
And,
about 20 miles or something like that, I think Poto's in.
We were on...
I think it's the same county, LaFleur County.
Yeah, we were over on Tram Ridge Road, and these people got to have a cabin that's kind of up the hill from where the highway is, and we went up there and camped overnight. And we heard howls down in the valley, but didn't see any footprints. We did cast a print. We found a print, and it looked like a big cat print. And we're going like, oh, is there big cats here in Oklahoma? And it was probably the size that a puma would make, but supposedly there are no big cats like that in Oklahoma. There's now the reportedly the Black Panther.
The panther, that's right.
Yes.
Now that we did hear about even when I was a kid. And in fact, our school mascot was the Panther, Stigler Panthers. And people always would tell stories about panthers, seeing panthers, even way, way back then. I won't tell you how many years ago that was. But you know what? It's time for us to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to hear more from Marilyn and Dick Carlson in Strange, Oklahoma. Stay with us. Welcome back to Night Vision. I'm your host, René Barnett. If you're just joining us, we're talking tonight with Dick and Marilyn Carlson. They are paranormal investigators from Oklahoma, and their website is UFOparanormalteam.com, and they have a few of their cases up there if you want to take a look and see what kind of work that they're doing. We've been talking about their latest investigation.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
To the dog man down in southeastern Oklahoma. We've been talking about Bigfoot and other creatures down in that same region. And while we were on break, they were telling me a very weird story that out of Oklahoma City, which is amazing to me, that even though it wasn't in the heart of downtown, it still is amazing that in that kind of a populated area where there are businesses and residences and other things that something like this could happen. So who wants to go? Dick, you want to tell the story? You want Marilyn to? Tell us about the lady early in the morning in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, like I say, this was, what year was it? I forgot.
I can't remember the year. It was probably about 5 years ago that we investigated this. So
this happened in 2014, and her sighting was on December the 6th. She was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and she was on her way to work over at Hobby Lobby, and this thing came up from
culvert.
Yeah, it looked like a culvert. Well, when we went back out and investigated, it is a culvert. And it came up, and she slowed down the car and stopped, and it just kind of walked its way right across in front of her, and it went down the other side, which of course there's the other side of the culvert. And and
how did she describe it?
Let me actually bring it up what she said.
Oh, go ahead.
Traveling south on 29th, heading east at about a tenth mile west of Council Road. So anybody who knows Oklahoma City knows where that is. She saw an animal come up the bank and start to walk down onto the road. She slowed so she would not hit it, and it continued to cross. In her headlights, she saw the creature walk on two legs. The thighs and hips were very muscular. It had a long tail with a large base that tapered like a whip. It swished it like it was angry, similar to how a cat will swish its tail when it does not like something. It had a small head and ears, very large eyes. Its skin was light tan, could not see any hair. It looked more lizard-like, but was shiny in the headlight. seemed to be intelligent as it stopped at the curb. And then when I stopped, it came across at a leisurely pace, not really in any hurry. Temperature had been warm for several days prior to the sighting, and December 6th was a full moon with no overcast. We love people that give us this kind of information.
Yeah.
Although the time between the sighting and the report was 21 days, Dick and Marilyn investigated the area where the sighting occurred. And up on our website, you'll see it's called, what did I call it? Cryptid Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay.
So when we got there, like I said, it was, it'd already been days. The culvert, I went down and actually looked into the culvert looking for footprints and didn't see any. Of course, it was kind of cold when we were there because the little creek that runs through there had ice on it. And then there's also a settling pond that was just east of it, right in the same area. So we went all through that looking to see if we could find any kind of footprints or anything.
We only found dog prints.
Yeah, that's all we found was some dog prints. And then the culvert was fairly new. So, I mean, it was a concrete culvert, and so it had, some mud in the bottom of it, but it was just too late to...
Yeah, we would have liked to have gotten out there right away and looked for footprints to see if, what kind of prints that we would have found. But sometimes people are nervous about reporting strange cases like that. And she was afraid we were going to judge her as being probably crazy. And of course,
well, I mean, look at working at Hobby Lobby. She's probably a very Christian.
Yeah,
like conservative, yeah. And she could have thought it was a demon or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and and her coming forward probably took quite a bit of willpower to do it.
Yeah.
And how did she find you guys? I mean, who?
The website.
So she went looking.
Oklahoma UFO or Oklahoma Paranormal. We're right there. So.
Yeah.
Our website is UFOparanormalteam.com. So
yeah, that's right, UFOparanormalteam.com. But she was actually going in search of someone that could help her explain what had happened.
Right. She had a lot of questions, and it just bugged her.
We actually talked to her for quite a while.
Yeah, we talked to her for quite a while. We met her out there, and she explained, what she had gone through, and
She probably didn't plan on telling anybody, and then, it just probably bugged her so much that she had to find out more. Right. That's what I would probably be thinking. Now, me, because, and you who've been steeped in this material so much, would probably, certainly investigate right away or call the right person to do the investigation. But, the average person out there, they probably don't have a paranormal investigator on speed dial, so they have to go looking, and then they have to kind of come to grips with what's happened to themselves. But it can be very, very crazy. But now,
it's incredible that,
Yeah, very credible witness.
I pretty much believe what she saw.
When you meet these people, that's what I found, with a lot of people. And we interviewed people that were from every walk of life. We had truck drivers, we had nurses, we had teachers, we had bankers. These people were all, close up witnesses to a creature. And I mean, they had nothing to gain. Right. And there was one gentleman that was a teacher and a track coach in Broken Bow. And he said that he had so much grief, from his friends about this Bigfoot sighting that he had, that he just didn't want to do anything. I talked to that guy for months and finally got him to let us just come and see him. And then I finally got him to let us interview him on camera. And there's no way this guy was making up the story, just no way. And I remember he had an experience. He was out in the woods and he was, hunting. He had his rifle and he was, down looking over, he was in a blind looking out one way, and he he heard something and he turned around and there was this creature standing right behind him. And he said he was face to face with him. And he said, I could have shot him. I could have killed him right there. He said, but I didn't. And I said, why? And he said, because I realized that he could have killed me so easy. He came up behind me. He could have killed me easy, and he didn't. And he said, I couldn't shoot him. And I said, well, tell me, when you were looking at him, were you looking at an animal or were you looking at a person? And he said, I was looking at a person.
You know,
That's
Ken,
what Ken said too.
Ken sort of said the same thing about his Bigfoot experience in Pennsylvania. He said it could have been a man, you know, that I was looking at, except that it had hair all over its body. And it was very powerful. Strength, looked like it had a lot of strength. It was carrying a deer on its back. And when he saw Ken, he turned and ran down the middle of the creek, along with probably the deer weighed maybe 75, 80 pounds. So that's no lightweight thing to be carrying on your back and running down the creek.
Yeah.
He outran Ken.
Yeah, big time.
So,
I asked Ken, I said, well, what would you do if he stopped?
Exactly.
all this Bigfoot wanted to do was get away from Ken. And, he was just as surprised to see Ken as Ken was to see him. So, it was just one of those happenstance things that he was down at the creek bent over looking for crayfish. And Ken came down the road and there was tall grass there and Bigfoot raised up. And when he did, they were practically face to face. So he was probably within 30 feet of him.
Wow.
We poured, of course, we just got there that afternoon and it had snowed the night before, so it was kind of cold. By the time we actually got down to Ken with the casting material, it was actually starting to get dark. And this is a limestone
quarry.
Well, I mean, there's a quarry there, but it's a limestone creek. In other words, there's cliffs that are about 100 foot high on both sides. And it's called Narrows Creek for a reason, because it is narrow.
Oh, mm-hmm.
So I hurriedly poured the casting. So, Ken, we better get out of here. So the next morning we went down. This time I brought the flare with me. And we got the casting. We weren't able to pull the casting that night because it was wet. So Bill, May, Ken, me.
Just the three of you.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Mike was there.
Michael came down. So anyway, I had the flare with me. So we pulled the casting, cleaned it up, and it's pretty good casting. So then we started looking around for hair and broken bushes and grass that was bent and everything else. And we kind of separated out. And all of a sudden, to me, even though I had the flare with me and I kind of looked.
Now, are you talking about a FLIR camera?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So that picks up heat.
If there was a warm body there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I was there, pretty soon I was kind of all by myself. And a little bit of fear came into me, like somebody was watching me. I didn't like it at all. I couldn't see anything with the FLIR, but it just... Well,
and let me explain this. Dick is not the kind of person that he gets spooked real easy like that. And so I think his gut instinct was that he really was being watched. So...
kind of a hair standing up on the back of your neck kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the woods are scary, scarier than anything, or being way out. I mean, I'd rather fight my way through Los Angeles, the worst neighborhoods of Los Angeles, than be out in the woods by myself, I tell you. And one night, we had just finished our production. We just finished filming our whole documentary, the Bigfoot documentary. My business partner, who was a British film director, and our crew was all from Great Britain, they all took off, and I headed out. We had left my car over in Ada and went and picked up my car, and it was late at night. It was around midnight, and I was headed, and I thought, okay, it's really too late to pop in on my parents who were about, maybe an hour away. And I was thinking, oh, should I go here, go there? So I decided, no, I'm just going to go, to the nearest town and get a motel room for the night. And I was driving along that road, and it was so dark, and there were no other cars. And all of a sudden, a car pulled out just as I was passing by from a little dirt road and just tailed me. And it would just, we were going down this curvy road. It was a dark, dark night. And I got so scared. And I thought, man, I'd rather be in L.A., and deal with whatever. At least I could see them, But it can be very, very scary out there. And, of course, we'd just been out there with all kinds of creatures and everything else. So it was already on my mind.
Yeah, well, but some of those roads in Oklahoma really don't have good places to really pull off the road because you got the ditch. And
yes.
And the only turnoffs are to go down a farmer's lane or, and they're far and few between in some places.
Well,
so
you continue on with 516 once you finish.
What?
Go right ahead.
We went there the next year because of what, the experience we had. 516 had a little bit of everything. It had UFOs, it had Bigfoot, it had, it has a Indian burial ground right there, right on the property. So it had all these things. So anyway, we went back the next year. Unfortunately, Ken couldn't make it. But this time we bought some meat. We brought crawfish oil because the creature had crawfish in his mouth. And then honeysuckle. We brought some honeysuckle candles. So we said, well, we're going to bait this thing. We knew where where we did the casting, and we knew pretty much where Ken saw it. So, and my son was with me, and so we went down and we hung, some ribs or some meat up in the trees, and we put out the crawfish oil, and then we put out the game camera and all that sort of thing. And the game camera, the next day we went down and got it, and it had deer. It had crows trying to figure out how to get the meat out of the trees, but there was no Bigfoot. So then we moved further up Narrows Creek and kind of set it up again. Again, all we had was
nothing.
Crows watching the meat.
Nothing. But our son set up down in what the family called the campground, and they have like a one-sided shed that they use. They have a table in there, and they used it for doing family picnics and stuff. And our son went down there that night, and he threw out his sleeping bag, and he was laying down in underneath the roof part.
I wouldn't do it.
And, no, I wouldn't have done it either, but he did. And something started throwing dirt clods at the backside of that building.
Oh.
And he called us. And when we went and investigated, not only had they broken off sticks and threw, but there were big clumps of dirt clods that they had thrown at the backside of the building. So something was there.
That's what drew us down to that area in the very first place for the documentary, because the very first story we heard was from these guys out of Tallahassee, and they lived outside out in the country, and they were saying that these Bigfoot creatures were coming in, throwing rocks at their house and scaring their dogs and, all kinds of things. And it's funny because this is not the first, and that wasn't the only time that I've also heard that they throw stuff at you. It's like I don't know if they're trying to scare you away or if they're just playing.
I don't think they're playing. I think they're trying to say, get out of my territory.
They probably are. But I tell you, I did speak with some people. In fact, it was a nurse in Ada. And we interviewed her right there at the hospital, on the hospital grounds. And she talked about how, she grew up in the woods, in a cabin in the woods. And she said that they used to play with, we used to play with the little ones.
Really?
And yeah. I'll have to get you a copy of that documentary, Marilyn, so you can see the people that we talked to. It could be somebody you might want to follow up with.
I would love to see it. So
yeah, I'll bring you a copy.
Yeah, we went over to Lake Stanley Draper. Bill and Julie were out there with their dogs, and they found.
Now, where's that?
Footprint. It's up by Norman.
Oh, Norman. Okay.
Just
northeast of Norman.
Yeah, but not that far.
No,
Norman. Yeah, it's. But it's out in the country.
Where Thunderbird is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just a lot smaller lake than Thunderbird, but it's in the same area.
Yeah, the same vicinity. And they had found these footprints that looked like barefoot, and they weren't sure if they had a Bigfoot. So they called us, and we went out there, and we looked everywhere around the area where the footprints were, and there were just a few prints of right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, and then they just there wasn't any. And we couldn't see where they came off the lake, like somebody beached a boat and, walked along the road. But we casted the prints, but in further study and looking at them, the little toe curved in on it, which is human. So they
wearing shoes.
Yeah, it's from wearing shoes that causes the little toe to curve in a little bit. With Bigfoot, the toes kind of spread out some. And so anyway, it turned out not to be Bigfoot. So that's one of the cases that we went on where it wasn't what we thought it was.
It was interesting because, it was, we're about, 2 or 3 miles in there?
Yeah, it was a ways.
Was walking barefoot.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been walking barefoot
and
down that
running.
road.
It wasn't a running stride. It was just kind of a walking.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff. Now, there was a case in western Oklahoma, I think west of Oklahoma City, and I'm trying to remember the name of the town. It might come to me, but Lucky Star Casino. Does that sound familiar to you?
There's a Bigfoot case out there.
Now, I remember there was a story about a Bigfoot, coming and getting into the grease bin behind the restaurant at the casino. Right. Exactly. And there was some CCTV footage that captured it. Then somehow the footage got confiscated. Somebody said it got accidentally erased at the police department.
No, I'll tell you what. In our research on this, they actually, because they don't want anybody out there looking for Bigfoot and disturbing Bigfoot, they have great respect, as you know, the Native Americans have great respect for Bigfoot, and they don't want him disturbed and people out there poking around and looking for him. So they announced that the tape got erased and they don't have it anymore and blah, 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 blah. They really do have it. They actually still have a copy of it. And, but they don't want people out there looking. And so we just recently were out there at the casino. So, but we've never seen anything unusual. The casino sits up on the top of a big hill, kind of ridge kind of thing. And the wind.
Isn't it on tribal land?
What's that?
Isn't it on tribal land?
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah. It is. And the wind just blows there continuously. And
now, to my recollection, there's like one of those old abandoned Indian residential schools.
There is.
Near that.
It's
and
haunted.
I've heard that's extremely haunted. Yeah.
Yes.
Down in Concho.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's over the hill from where the casino is.
Wow. Wow. Now, somebody just in the chat room, interestingly, just brought up the Boggy Creek story, which I'd forgotten about, but the old movie from the 70s, The Legend of Boggy Creek, where they told the story of this guy named Smokey Crabtree who had discovered this supposed creature, and he had its body, and they used actual people, residents of that area near Broken Bow, to be in the film. It was a horrible film, but it was sort of like a cult classic. And interestingly, when we were doing Bigfootville, we went and met up with Smokey Crabtree and his wife, who he called Bandit, so Smokey and the Bandit, and went out to dinner with them and everything, had some good rapport with them, and he claimed that he had this big creature corpse in his garage. And we couldn't for love or money. Well, we could have for money, but it was way too much more money than we ever had. We didn't get a chance to see it, but he wouldn't let us in there to see it unless we came. I forgot how many thousands of dollars to just have a look at it. But someone had just brought that up in the chat room.
People they were out of Texas that faked a Bigfoot on ice. And
yes, I remember that.
Yes. So there are people out there that do that. And
believe me, yeah, there are definitely hoaxers out there.
Yeah,
that's for sure. That's why it's good to have people like you guys that are actually trained investigators, and you go out there not to prove your thesis, but just to see what it is.
Yeah,
keep an open mind and do the investigation.
We've got another interesting case that we went on, and we don't know where to put it. It wasn't.
This might be a good place to take a break, because otherwise I'm going to have to interrupt you right in the middle of it, and I don't want to do that. So I hope MJ's ready, because we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more with Dick and Marilyn Carlson. We're going to hear something brand new that I have no idea what she's going to tell us, but it's going to be interesting. So hang in there with us. Hi, welcome back to Night Vision. Tonight we're talking with Dick and Marilyn Carlson. They are investigators of the paranormal located in Oklahoma and my home state. And we're talking about all things weird in Oklahoma. And believe me, these guys have a lot of cases that they've been investigating. They've been involved in the paranormal for a long time, trained investigators, which is what we need. So they were just getting ready to share a brand new story. I have no idea what they're going to tell us, and I'm all ears, because Dick wouldn't let Marilyn give me any hints on the break. So I'm all ears.
We got a case that came to us from Duncan, Oklahoma. And this couple lived out kind of in the country a little ways from the actual town of Duncan. And he was driving down the road. It was
his wife actually sent us the email.
Yeah, the wife sent the email, but they were driving down the road, daytime. It
was 6:45 in the evening.
Yeah, but it was still daylight.
In March.
Yeah, it was in March. It was daylight, and they saw this ball that was you could see through it, but yet it was very dark, smoky looking. And it came across from the field in front of the tree and across the highway and off into the field and just meandered off and disappeared. And the ball itself was about, 3 foot.
He says
it was almost as wide as the car.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember. It's almost as wide as the car. But it was a perfect round
it was about half
ball.
The width of his vehicle.
Yeah. It was a perfect round ball, but you could see through it, and it was dark.
But it wasn't a sphere.
No, it wasn't a sphere. He doesn't know.
Like you hear about.
Yeah.
Was it kind of like articulating, or was it kind of like moving about, like it wasn't even, like you say it's not a sphere, so it wasn't like a perfect sphere. Was it a different shape, or did it kind of change shape a little bit?
It changed shape. It stayed perfectly round.
When I say sphere, I mean, you hear about spheres that are, shiny and
UFOs or whatever, and
right.
It wasn't spinning or anything like that. And so we went down, we took pictures, looked the area over.
We did a pretty
thorough investigation. Went over with millimeters, and looked for radiation of some kind. There were no UFO reports from that particular region, at least not recently.
Yeah, he'd driven that road.
Many times.
He lives in here. He'd driven that road forever.
And this is the first time he'd ever seen anything like this.
And he's an aeronautical engineer.
Yes.
So
And so, so very credible witness. And so then we looked into the possibility that bees will move their entire hive. And we looked into that, but it wasn't bees. There was no sound. He rolled his window down because he thought, what is that? And there was no sound. You would probably at least see bees buzzing around like his vehicle, but there weren't any.
But he said it was moving at about 150, he estimated about 150 miles an hour. So, I mean, it was moving fast.
Yeah, it was.
Just kind of was there and went across.
And it went across and gone. And
some of the things we asked him, reading it from our website, said, I asked him, are you sure it wasn't a solid object? He said, no, it wasn't solid. The outer edge was fuzzy, and even though the center was black, he could still see through it. I asked him, did it appear to emit any sort of light? No, he said it didn't.
No shadow.
Did it appear to be on the road in front of him? And he said, no, it was above the surface of the road about 2 or 3 foot. When I asked, what size do you think it was compared to your vehicle, which is a Ford F-150 van, or E-50 van, he estimated it was about half the width of his vehicle, so about 4 foot wide.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
and no sound. No sound, he says.
Put that. It's not a UFO. It's not a ghost. It didn't fall into like a shadow man.
Or an orb.
It's perfectly round.
Not an orb.
We just didn't know what it was. It was one of those unusual cases that we've never really solved it.
Now,
and we've never had another report.
As an aeronautical engineer, did he have any theories whatsoever?
None. He was just as mystified as we were.
He didn't say, oh, it could have been.
There were no storms, so, ball lightning comes into mind and those sort of things.
But ball lightning isn't dark like that.
It doesn't look like that, yeah.
Well,
you hear stories about, a big round sort of glowing object or light, that flies by or something, but I haven't heard anything. The only thing that I've heard of that is similar to that, it was out here and it was in the LA area, and it was in a closed down hospital, and they, said that certain area.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo! Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
The hospital was haunted, and so a guy that I know set up a camera, a motion-activated camera to put in there at night, and this sort of black or dark mass, came by, but it wasn't traveling that fast, and it was more sort of blobby, but you could see through it.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of how Shadow Man, sometimes they have the Shadow Man type of story.
Right.
And we have seen, when we've been out ghost hunting, we've seen what appears to be, and it's there and then it's gone. Something that's a dark shadow, but it had more of the shadow of a figure than it was just a blob.
It was so unique that we had kind of a protocol of if it's something like, think it's a landing or something. And so the first thing we did is we broke out the Geiger counters and did a sweep to make sure, both to protect ourselves and to see if, there was any kind of residual radiation from it, including because it was a barbed wire between the two trees. So we went up and even checked that, and we didn't get anything. So then we could start, really investigating Mel meters and tri-field meters. And
there was cows out in the field over on that one side, and they didn't act like there was anything wrong.
No.
Just didn't pay it any attention.
No, they just kept grazing and like nothing.
Very interesting. It reminds me a little bit, but and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll see why it's not like this. But it came. You said it was over the field. Remember, when people have seen things sort of flying around and hovering over fields where crop circles were created. Have you guys ever investigating crop circles around that area?
We had one crop circle report, but when we went out and looked at it, what we could see was that the field had been flooded, and as the water ran off, the grass was lying down where the ground had been so wet that it flowed off and into the ditch area. So we ruled that as a weather phenomenon and weather related rather than being a
real crop circle.
A real crop circle. There was not enough of shape to it to even indicate that it was an actual design.
Actually, have a drone where we could.
Yeah, we didn't have our drone then, but we have a drone now where we can
look down on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, have there been any crop circles in Oklahoma? I don't know if I've heard about any.
No, there have not that we know of.
It's kind of interesting with all the fields, but I guess
there has been up in Kansas. There was some crop circles, but not in Oklahoma. So
interesting. Now, the crop circle phenomenon. I know you guys do investigate crop circles. Is that something that is still ongoing, or have we kind of seen that really dwindle?
It seems like it's dwindled, but I don't know. Maybe it's become kind of normal.
There's kind of like a season for that. There is. I'm trying to think of her name. She promotes Vanderbroek stuff out of Holland.
Who was the gal that came and stayed with us when we lived in Everett? She was crop circles. Remember her?
Are you talking about Britt Elder? No.
The
older lady.
I can't think of her name now. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, Barbara was her first name.
I just haven't seen any reports recently, and it seems like, but maybe Dick also has a point there that maybe, it's sort of become common and it's really not big news anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, it was for a long time while it was so unusual, but then there were so many, it was kind of commonplace.
Ones,
Now there's some that I think it was just impossible for somebody to create that crop circle that they wouldn't be seen out in the field creating it.
Right.
So, I think that they are a real mystery. And
I think so too. I mean, it's just like we said, with some of these creatures or sightings or whatever. Some of those are hoaxes, but that doesn't discount that there are real stories. Same thing with the crop circles. I know that people do make them. I know people that have made them. I know people that have made huge ones, and they were just absolutely gorgeous. But even those people say that
it took them a while.
We're not, and we don't make them all. And we've had weird stuff happen while we've been out making them. They've seen weird things. In fact, there were some guys out of England. They called themselves the Circle Makers, and we actually had them build us a crop circle. And it was the time of year where we had to go to a place in the world where the crops were right. It was for an NBC special, so we went to New Zealand. And these guys did a crop circle about the size of a football field. And believe it or not, it took them about 4 hours. Not very long, really. We showed it in time-lapse photography. It was beautiful. But those guys said, hey, we started making them sort of in homage to the ones that we believe were the real ones. It's sort of like an art form that we have, that we got from them. And they don't discount that there are real ones. And in fact, a part on their website said weird stuff happens. And like I said, but they didn't use the word stuff. They used the word that we'd probably used if we weren't on the radio. But that was at an actual page on their website, and you click on that, and they tell about all the really bizarre stuffs and UFO sightings that they've had while they were out doing stuff in the middle of the night. So it's interesting.
I can talk about a UFO case that we investigated here in Oklahoma. That it was in Buffalo, Oklahoma.
Now, where's that? Not familiar.
Is over by the western border, up close to the Panhandle.
It's
okay.
Woodward.
Yeah, it's just north of Woodward, Oklahoma.
Woodward.
If you know where that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And these people had a sighting. They went out to feed their horses that they had on property that they rented, and they saw this UFO come down and hover over above the horses, and it scared them really bad. So they ran and got in their car and left. And then they called us and reported to us what had happened to them. And we drove over there, and the horses had on their backs these round circles, white powdery round circles. We do not know what they were. We tried to take samples of what they were. There was a spot in the pasture between where the gate was and a big tree, that there was a round circle that was looked like the grass just had died off. And we used the Geiger counter and got no response on it. But the lady had on her marks on her arm where it looked like a bruise where 3 fingers and a thumb had grabbed her on her forearm.
Oh, geez. So you think there might have been some missing time going on there?
Yes, they did have some missing time, but she did not want to know what happened to her. She swore up and down it was impossible that it was a UFO. Nothing happened to her. She didn't want to know.
What was their description? How did they describe the...
It was a silver disc, and it had lights on it.
Wow.
And it just turns out that area that they reported seeing it is a no-fly zone for the military.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So we don't know if she saw a real honest-to-God UFO that belonged to extraterrestrials, or she witnessed to something that they were testing that was ours.
Some kind of advanced technology that
we
may be developing. Yeah. Hard to know.
He wanted no publicity.
None.
She was afraid that, here's the fear thing again with people.
Well, it's a small town, and she was afraid that kids would be ridiculed at school.
And they probably would have been.
Yeah.
We wanted to go to the sheriff's department and ask them if they'd seen anything.
And she wouldn't let us.
No, please don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's a believable person. When somebody wants to charge you money and get on TV or something like that, not so much. But someone
I believe something happened to this lady. I really believe that.
Somebody that's just looking for answers, that to me is a much more believable witness. And, that's really wild. Now, was it big? Did she have any idea of size or anything like that?
Oh, I don't recall.
Well, remember, it was a MUFON thing in the beginning.
Yeah, it came to us. It was a Star Team thing.
Oh.
And then she reported.
We'll never know about that then.
Well, the Star Team came out and sent somebody out there and investigated, and they were so rude to her, it upset her. So when they had the other incident where she had the marks on her arm, she called us.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you talking about 2 incidents?
Yes, there was more than one. We went through maps, by the way, with a mail meter, and we got a response with a mail meter.
Now, what's that?
Mail meter is electromagnetic field detector.
Oh.
And you use it when you do a lot of ghost hunting.
Right. I never heard it called a mail meter.
Yeah.
Well, the title doesn't mean anything. The guy named it after his daughter, whose name was, but it's yeah, it's a
that's cool. So it's an EMF meter.
Electromagnetic sensor. It's like a tri-field.
Oh, that's interesting. And then you got a
response.
Responses on that. Interesting. Now, what was the length of time in between these 2 incidents?
A week, maybe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And so in that week, the MUFON team had been out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then something else happened, and she called you guys.
Robert Bigelow
and Bigelow's henchman came out too.
Yeah.
Be careful. We might all disappear.
So she had the next incident. She called us, and we hopped in the car and went up there and
checked it out.
Because the STAR team already told Marilyn she couldn't participate in the first one.
I offered to help, and
Marilyn,
says, "Oh no, you stay out of this."
Tell her no. I've been married to her for 52 years, and you can't tell her no.
Well,
I'll find a way.
I'm sure you figured out a way to work that out, Dick. You know what they say: happy wife, happy life.
Yeah. Well, and she also reported that she had unusual dreams, and that the kids were also having weird dreams.
Did they share any of that?
The dreams that she was having was that she was being visited by this light, and she kept saying the light came into the room, but I was asleep, and so I don't know. And then of course she got the marks on her arm, so I really think that when that UFO hovered over them, when they were out in the field with the horses, I think they were zeroed in on. And then a week later, she's had she had strange dreams, and then she ended up with the marks on her body. She would not accept the possibility that she was an abductee.
Well, I don't blame her.
Well, I understand, but because I do work with abductees, I want to really get into it.
Yeah. Well, we'd like to have the information, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, how long ago was this? Is this something recent, or?
Marilyn was still a state director of MUFON at that point.
So that's probably 8 years ago, maybe.
I wonder if anything's happened to her since.
I don't know. I know she won't call MUFON.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, maybe you ought to double back and check up on her and see if anything else is going on. Maybe she'll open up. Mm-hmm. Especially if she continues to have some kind of experiences. She may want to do something about it. Although she probably would have called if she wanted to do something about it.
Yeah, I think she probably would have.
That's an interesting story, though.
We went on an investigation, did a ghost hunt where the people did not want the entity moved out. That was one in Springfield, Missouri. They said she's not bothering us. We just were really curious about it, and we don't want her moved out. So,
wow, what was the story on her?
Well, this is the one in Springfield where
right,
the young 9-year-old girl made contact with us. She was murdered in that. At that time, it was a home, but now it's a business. It's a plumbing business. And kind of what's now considered the old downtown area of Springfield. But they contacted us, wanted to know more about what was going on. Things were being moved. And things would appear and disappear, and they wouldn't know where, and then it would show up someplace else in the house. And so my cat just stepped on me. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
She stepped on the computer, and I'm going, uh-oh, did she just...
Oh, my goodness. Oh, how funny. Yeah, I have to chain up the dogs, not chain them up, but I have them sequestered in another room. One of the kids has the dog. Oh, my dogs, you'd be hearing them if they were out, believe me. But now, did you guys have like initial experiences, or what sparked your interest in all these kinds of strange subjects, all this paranormal activity? How did you get onto it in the first place?
I had a very unusual experience in the 90s when we were living in Biloxi, Mississippi. And it was that experience with an extraterrestrial that I took a huge interest in what was going on. And I had a meditation group at that time, and information started coming to me about ET and contact with ET and so forth. And so I'm like, this girl came to our meeting, and she claimed to have a lot of contact with ET and very personal contact with ET. And I said to her, well, if they really do exist, can you just make arrangements for a flyby? And she says, oh, I think we can do better than that. And a week later, I had the experience. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it was after that we really started taking. I always had an interest in ghost hunting, and had done a little bit of that as well. So we just kind of graduated from there to taking an interest in Bigfoot and researching Bigfoot. And we weren't expecting to have that experience with Bigfoot in Pennsylvania, but
well, yeah, I mean, I grew up in Montana and hunted and everything. And I just like Ken. Ken grew up in Missouri and
lived in Colorado,
hunted and everything else. Neither one of us believed Bigfoot at all. I mean, gee, I never saw a dead one. I never saw any skeleton. I never saw that. Of course, did you ever find a skeleton of a bear when you're out hunting? No, but anyway. And then he has this experience, and I go down. I cast the footprint. So all of a sudden, we both became believers.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, I mean.
Well, I'm sure glad that something sparked both your interest because. You have such a great body of work already, and I can't wait to hear what you guys are going to be on to next. And I can't wait to hear more about this Dogman investigation. Are you going to continue on with that?
Yes, we'll probably try to make a trip over to Boone County, and we want to do it when Ken can do it. Right now, he's really busy with his campground business.
Yep.
But off a little bit after the school year.
All right. Well, the music's rolling, guys. It's gone so fast. Thanks very much to Dick and Marilyn Carlson, paranormal investigators, for sharing what's in your backyard and my own backyard. And remember, we're going to be doing this as a recurring feature. So if you have someone from your state or even your country that you'd like to recommend to represent your area and tell us all about all the strange things around you that are in your backyard, let us know at Inception Radio or hit me up on Facebook. Dick and Marilyn, thanks so much. And thanks to MJ, as usual. Take care, everybody. Good night.
Thanks.
Okay, keep